Hello and welcome to this video, which is going to be talking about sprites in motion. Before we get our sprite moving, however, we first want to change its appearance. Right now our sprite looks like a triangle pointing to the right, and the reason is because when you create a sprite, or when you get the default sprite, under costumes, in this costumes tab here, you get for free one costume, and it looks like a turtle. It really isn't a turtle. There's a long story behind that which we will omit for the present. If we want to add costumes, however, there are two ways to do it. The easiest is to click on this menu here and choose Import Costumes. And then we have a choice of multiple costumes, and we can choose as many as we like. We can choose our costumes. We can change from one costume to another by clicking on them, and under the looks palette there are also blocks that will let us do that. For right now I'm going to stick with Alonzo. Sprites have a location which is expressed in terms of XY coordinates and a direction. The easiest way to understand this is to turn these on. So in the motion palette, you will notice at the bottom there are three what are called reporter blocks. These are blocks that actually report a value. And when you check them, their values will appear here. So you can see right now that when we created our sprite, it's at 0, 0, and it's pointing due east, which is 90 degrees. If I move my sprite, and the sprite is draggable, you can see as I move to the right, X increases, and as I move to the left, Y Y stays the same, X decreases. As I move up, Y increases. As I move down, Y decreases. It gets to around negative 180 approximately, and maybe plus 180, and then it gets as far to the right as about 240 and negative 240. Those are sort of approximate values. I will naturally want to be able to change these values, and I can do so programmatically in scripts. So first, with my sprite selected, I'm going to click on the scripts tab and get into the motion palette, and all of these will either change the location. So for instance, if I move, you can see as I'm moving, since right now I'm pointing 90 degrees or to the right, that's increasing X. If I decided to turn, you can see that Alonzo there is turning, and you can see that that is changing the sprite direction. Now, just to clarify, I'm going to use my point in direction block and simply click here so we can see. 0 degrees means up. 90 degrees means you're pointing to the right or east. 180 degrees means you're pointing down. And negative 90, or if you wish, plus 270, means you're pointing to the right, so you're actually upside down at that point. By the way, if you don't like the fact that our sprite can be upside down, you can click on this little button here to only allow the sprite to face left and right. I'm going to leave it in can rotate. I don't mind having my sprite upside down. In addition to using move and turn, we can also use the block goto, and we can specify the X and Y location. So if I click here, the sprite moves right into the center. It's still upside down, but instead of saying turning, I'm just going to use point. So I'm going to point in direction of 90, and now our sprite is back where it started from, pointing to the right and centered. If I want to, as I cause my sprite to move about the stage, I can record its location, and I can do so by using a pen. So I can take the pen and put it down, and so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to first of all have my sprite at the beginning of the script point due east and be centered at 0, 0. Then I'm going to put the pen down. Now, sprites have a pen, and it may not seem obvious that a sprite has a pen, so you have to use your imagination here. But basically, you can think of this sprite as it moves along as holding a pen, and the pen can either be down, in which case it leaves a line as it moves, or the pen can be up. So I'm going to put the pen down, and then I'm going to move. And so I'm going to move, not just 10, but I'm going to move 50 steps. And then I'm going to turn 90 degrees. And I'm going to repeat these two steps 4 times. Now, I can do this in a couple of different ways. One is to right-click duplicate and put them here and keep doing this. And now, let's see if you can predict what this is going to look like. So I'm going to just pause for a moment and wait for you to figure out what do you think is going to happen when I put a pen down and the sprite is going to move and then turn 90 degrees, move and then turn 90 degrees, move and then turn 90 degrees, and do that 4 times. By the way, at the end, I'm going to put the pen up. All right, so I'm pausing, or in fact, since I'm using YouTube, I guess I'm not pausing, but go ahead and pause and come back when you think you have an answer. Do you have an answer? Excellent. So let's go ahead and run this script. I'm going to use one of the hat blocks. So I click on Control, and I'm going to use when space key pressed. So when I hit the space bar, you can see it drew a square. Now I'm going to move this out of the way here so we can see that square in all its glory. And I'm going to hit the space bar again. Now, this is drawing so fast on this computer that you can't see it happen. So one thing we might want to do is, after we've moved and turned, take a wait. Let's just pause momentarily for a word from our sponsor. Let's wait, oh, I don't know, 1/10 of a second. That sounds long enough. And then I'm going to repeat the same thing over here and here, and I don't really need one at the end. And I'm going to use 0.1 and take advantage of the fact that when I hit the tab, I can go from one input field to the next without having to keep clicking in there. Alright, so let's watch this one. I'm going to hit the space bar. It didn't seem to quite work. Let's try that again. There we go. You can see there's a bit of 1/10 of a second. Now if you'd like, you can erase any drawing that you've done. Again, under the pen palette, we have clear. So I'm going to drag this, and again you'll notice that we're taking advantage of the fact that I can drag a block anywhere into a script. I'm just going to put it right here. So now, the first thing that happens is the square gets erased, and then it gets drawn. Those of you who like to have things short and sweet, you may object to the fact that I have got 3 blocks here, move, turn, and wait, that I'm doing 4 times essentially. I don't have one last wait here. Let me add that last wait just so I have total symmetry here. And there we go. So I'm going to change this to be 0.1. So now I have 3 blocks that are repeated 4 times. Move, turn, wait, and so forth. If I decided to make a bigger square, let's say instead of 50 I wanted it to be 150, I have to change it here, 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 here. That's a nuisance, and it makes it difficult to follow exactly what the script is doing. Well, there's a better way. So what I'm going to do first of all is get rid of these. I'm going to hold on to the pen up block. But I just notice I dragged these blocks down. That's how I delete things. I drag them down and then get rid of them. And then since these 3 blocks are done repeatedly, I'm going to use a repeat block. And drag those inside. And now this is much shorter, much more concise. It's perfectly clear what's going on. By the way, if it's not perfectly clear, here's one more tip. I can right-click here and choose, no I can't, I have to click right here on the scripts area but not on a block, and choose Add Comment. And I'm going to write a comment, I'll just put it right here, and I'm going to say, this script draws a square. So now we know exactly what it does. And let's go ahead and test it. There we go. There's our square. And if I didn't like the size of it, I just have to change it in one location. Instead of 150, I'm going small, 25. You may not like the fact that this is just drawn a square and we have to move it around. We have to move it off in order to be able to see it. Well, there are a couple of ways we can handle this. One way is in looks. we have the ability to show and hide a sprite. So I'm going to go ahead and I guess I will hide it right here. And then at the beginning of the script, just to make sure it's visible, I'm going to show it. So when the script starts, the sprite, if it's hiding, will become visible. Then it's going to go ahead and do its drawing, and it's going to disappear. In fact, let's just add one more little bit of a joke here. So instead of saying hello, we're going to say goodbye. And then we'll just do this for 1 second. So when we run the script now, it draws, disappears, and we can see the square. You may find it a bit disconcerting to have lost our sprite, but you can always bring it back. I can just double click on show, and there's our script. There's our sprite. You'll notice that these blocks, even when they're not on the scripting area, some of these blocks will work. You can just click on them. So hide and show. Drawing a fairly regular shape. I think we will all agree that a square is some sort of a regular geometric shape, but we can draw all sorts of shapes. So for example, we could draw, I don't know, the letter V. To draw the letter V, I think you can see what we'd have to do. We'd have to start off by putting the sprite here, put the pen down, and move it down to here, and then move it up to here. And if you want, you can look in the X and Y values. So you could just put a sprite here and say, okay, it's at -144.37. So we're going to go ahead and in motion, we're going to remember those facts. So I'm going to say go to -144.37. And then we're going to turn in a direction. Now I could turn a certain number of degrees, or I could point in a specific direction. Now 90 degrees is to the right, 180 degrees is straight down. That would mean if I average 90 and 180, for those of you who don't have a calculator handy, it's 135. Now I'm pointing in, well, let's just find out what direction we're pointing in. There we go. It's a little bit hard to tell with Alonzo, but we're now pointing down here, sort of a 45-degree angle. And we're going to move, let's make it 80. So now that will bring us all the way down to here. Let's see that happen. There we go. We moved 80. We didn't draw anything yet, but we will. And then we need to turn in the opposite direction. So we actually have to turn, that would be, I would estimate, 90 degrees. Let's see if that's going to work. So we're going to turn to the right 90 degrees. And then we're going to move another 80 steps. And let's just see how that looks. So in order to see what this really looks like, we probably need to put a pen down and at the end a pen up block into the equation. So I'm going to move to where I want to start, then put pen down, and then put pen up at the end. So that way, if the sprite happens to be somewhere over here, when it's going there, I'm going to assume that the pen's up. I'm not sure if the pen is up, but it is now, because I just clicked on it here. So I run the script, and let's see what we get. It doesn't look very good, does it? That doesn't look like a V to me. Alright, and I tried it a second time, because remember, when in doubt, if something's wrong, try it exactly the same a second time. No, just kidding. So it didn't work. We've done something wrong. Now it looks vaguely V-ish, but not quite right. So in order to appreciate this, let's run this in slow motion. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Control, and then I am going to choose, there's something called Warp. I'm hoping there's something called Slow, and there probably is, but I'm just going to wait. I'm going to point in my direction, then I'm going to wait, move, and wait. Sounds like a song. Move and wait, and then move. This way I get to sort of see it in slow motion. So let's see what happens here when I run this. So I'm going to go back to the pen and clear it. In fact, I'm going to put this here so it automatically clears first. Okay. Move, turn. All right, our turn here has gone awry. When we turn, we said we were going to turn 90 degrees, and there's our problem. Alonzo is facing down here. Now if you think about the letter V, after you've traced the left leg of the V. I don't know, do V's have legs? We'll pretend. After you've traced the left part of the V, you want to turn not to the right, but you want to turn to the left. And we're turning to the right 90 degrees. You might want to draw this on a piece of paper to sort of visualize this. This is one of those things where it might actually be handier to be pointing at or drawing this on a whiteboard. But in any event, turn to the right 90 is incorrect. I could change that to negative 90. Instead, I am going to use another block. So I'm going to get rid of this. In the motion block, I am going to turn to the left 90 degrees. And let's just see how that works. So here we go. Everyone ready? We have to wait. Move, turn, move, and we have the letter V. So there we have our letter V. Now you notice when we ran this the first time it didn't work properly, so we threw in these little weights, and I'm going to get rid of them now because we don't need them anymore. But this does illustrate an important problem. Sometimes when you are working on a script, it's not going to work the way you expect. I thought I had it figured out properly. I didn't. So this is part of one of the main reasons why Snap is so great. It lets you try things on the fly. It lets you experiment. And this was an example, a very small example, but an example of problem solving. And it's exactly what your students need. Alright, so this video has gone on rather long enough, but we've gotten some ideas as to how to move sprites. We're going to come back and do a second part to this video where we're going to talk about animating sprites. So we're going to see if we can challenge Pixar. So please join me in the next video.